Welcome. Thank you for joining us. I'm very, very excited today to introduce Kristen Numen. She is a psychic, a medium, a shaman, a spiritual life coach, spiritual teacher and activator, a Reiki master, and a woman with many other beautiful gifts and talents, which you can find on her website, infiniteheartandsoul.com. Welcome, Kristen.
Thank you so much, Mary, for having me here. Thank you.
Well, I saw your story. I watch near-death experiences on YouTube all the time. I'm going to say the short piece, then I'm going to let you take it away because what you have to say is so powerful. But so, you know, I always say I started this podcast because I believe there's a new spirituality birthing in the world today. And I believe it has a lot to do with the divine feminine, which has been ignored and denied for so long. And so a couple weeks ago, and anyway, when I went through the out of traditional religion into a more spiritual, open belief system, it was very scary for me because I was in my mid-30s, which was a while ago. And there wasn't a lot out there to kind of support this different path I was being led down. So I wanted to develop a show where women can share all kinds of different spiritual paths outside of the traditional religious paths. So a couple of weeks ago, I shared this experience I had. It wasn't near death, but it sounds very much like what happens when people have near death. It was during a very sacred ceremony, and I had, which I realize now was a Kundalini awakening. I read about it afterwards, so that's what it was, but it was the same kind of thing, seeing the face of the divine, which was all feminine, and it was beautiful. And I shared that, and I was bawling through the whole thing. And then afterward, I started doubting. I was like, oh, that's too raw. It's too emotional. They're going to eat me alive. Do I really want to expose that much of myself? But I kept saying, but I promised her that I would share this. I would share this. So I was waffling. And so I went on YouTube, as I do a lot of times, and you popped up, and it wasn't one I had seen before. So I clicked on it, and you were talking about your experience, and you started bawling. And I was like, okay, so that's exactly why I'm doing this. So we can just be like, yep, it's very hard to talk about these experiences without crying. And it does make you feel vulnerable, but it's so important. So anyway, I wanted to share that. So thank you. You already helped me before we even were able to get to this interview. And now, without further delay, please feel free to share in whatever manner feels comfortable to you about your near-death experience.
Thank you so much, Mary. I love that. I love that you had a Kundalini awakening. I love how the synchronicities of you being able to see, you know, that my NDE that popped up. I teach by my vulnerability. So I'm always crying. And I always say it's like a dramedy, a dramatic comedy whenever I'm doing teachings or something like that, because we laugh, we cry, and it's just all about love. So I awakened in 2016. So I have been, you know, in the spiritual community for a bit and grew my gifts. And I do have heart issues, severe heart issues, electrical issues, arrhythmias. And I've had that for over 15 years now, close to 20. And I've had several surgeries. One of them was actually June of 2023 when I had my last surgery. And I'll actually talk about that because my higher self had given me information about that as well. But November 3rd, 2023, I can already feel the emotions starting to come up because, again, this is very raw. Just shy, May 3rd will be 6 months that this has happened. So November 3rd is my husband's birthday, and he is never home in the morning. He's always out. He does construction. So he's like, I'm going to take off for my birthday and we'll have the day together. I had my last class. I teach a group channeling class, and I was feeling good that morning. I wasn't feeling as much of the sickness as I normally do, the chest pressure and the pain and all of that. So I was like, oh, it's a good day today. So our daughter happened to be home as well. She's in college, but she's normally up and out and doing all different things. So for both of them to be home was pretty spectacular and divine within itself. So I had gone in the shower. My husband laid in bed, and I kept the door open to the shower. Dogs are on the bed like they always are. And I remember facing the shower, had my conditioner in my hair and facing the shower, and a snap of the fingers, I knew instinctively to lean against the shower wall. And that's when my spirit came out of my crown and I faced myself. And I watched myself fall, and I slid down and I hit my head on the marble. My husband had said, which I don't remember this being out of body, but he said, whatever you did, you got the dog's attention. And they turned and they looked. My husband looked over there and saw my head and flew over there. What I had seen was I was turning purple. And then I saw my daughter's face. And then I was in the ambulance and they were breathing for me. But what happened between then is my heart had stopped. My husband had to give me consistent chest compressions in order to keep me going because I kept turning blue and then purple. So thank goodness our daughter was home. He was able to scream to her to get her in so she could call 911, get all the animals in the room and do what needed to be done because he couldn't stop because I kept turning blue. They needed to try and stabilize me in the ambulance. So when I told my husband, I saw them breathing for me, he said, yes, that's right. They were, because you were unresponsive and they needed to try and stabilize you as much as they could. I think what really hits me the most is that I was unresponsive for almost 20 hours. So I was intubated and unresponsive. I think the biggest thing for what I do and being a medium, I always had loved ones of my clients, loved ones of my own, always look at me and tell me, Kristen, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to die. It doesn't hurt. And the other thing too, what that's very profound for me that I was thinking about yesterday morning was the fact that we go back home. This is a temporary place. We came from our true home and we're here temporarily, and then we go back home again. So when I went into spirit and I saw those few things being in my body, I knew exactly what was happening when it happened. I remember thinking, I watching myself die. I died. And it was, there's no pain. There is no pain. We'll get into it, but look at the eyes of the person. There's no pain because when my daughter saw my eyes, I wasn't there. But it was the snap of the fingers, a drop of a hat. It's that quick and there's no pain. So as soon as I could, I don't even remember gasping for help. I remember knowing in body that something was happening. And that's when I instinctively knew to go against the wall. There was no saying help or anything. There was no time. And I just came out. But when I came out, I went straight to source. Straight to source. I remember now my higher self behind me. My higher self is a seraphim angel, which was a whole thing in itself to get to that, realizing who my higher self was. But I could feel all of that energy and seeing source, this beautiful, I mean, I was raised Catholic, so I, will always call God he, but God is this beautiful balance of masculine and feminine energy, this gorgeous, glorious, warm yellow light. And I know I've said this so many times, but looking at the sunset, especially in Florida, we have like this warm yellow light that just emits in that sunset. And that's as close as I can get to describe how source looks. And it was just, she was so proud of me. Look at all you've done. Welcome home. And I remember just moving around because there's no body, although it's still feels like a body because you can bring your awareness different places. But I was just swirling around, and God was just, uh, I know we had a whole conversation because I don't remember every single thing, but I remember having a conversation, and I remember God saying to me, because I channeled what I call the circle children. I was told they're called the circle children. And this was several years ago, they came forward to me. I didn't understand the concept of them. I just knew I was channeling them. And then come to find out the past year, so maybe 6-ish months before I passed, I was visited again and understood what the circle children are. And they are the happy, joyful, whimsical inner child. It is the best part of ourself. That's the inner child. And I perceive them as looking no more than 13. Some of them can look, a lot of people have seen them and you don't know who they are, but they look sometimes in old-fashioned clothing, sometimes not. One of the little boys that I see, he has these gorgeous blue eyes. They glow. They just look like they glow to me. And darker skin. He's just adorable. And he has on high tops, so more modern looking clothing. But God said, that's me. The circle children are me. I always thought I was very childlike, and God said, that's me. The fun, the whimsy, the joy, the happiness, the curiosity, the magic, that's what it's about. And the love, just the deep, unconditional love. It's just nothing that I can put into words here, except when you look at your children, your loved ones, just that pure, unconditional love that it, so in that moment, I had these lights come on me. I looked like the sun. So the rays of light would go on to me. And there were what looked like hundreds of them. And I brought my awareness down, and Source said, if you look at them, you can go to that person. Some people were yelling. I could hear the whispering, Kristen, Chrissy, Kristen, Chris, Kristen, my nickname, all these different things. And you can zoom in and hear the prayer and actually go to the person, because it's just, you can be everywhere. You could hear everyone. So it was the prayers of everyone that was praying for me. And I found out when I did wake up that people were having prayer circles, and all of my friends that are psychic and very connected and intuitive as well, they actually validated things for me, and I was able to validate them. So this experience has been so profound for everyone involved in my life, because they were able to validate things, and I was able to validate them. The importance of connecting with your spirit guides. My mom is in her early 80s, and I have taught her how to connect and how to work with her spirit guides and trust her intuition. So when my parents were on their way to me, they're about 45 minutes away, Mom said, can you please give me a sign that Chrissy is okay? Please give me a sign. I have a nickname for my mom. She's my tree, and I'm her apple, because the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So when they got to the hospital, and they, before they let them in, they had to get me all prepared and set up. So by the time my parents got there, they were able to come in. But the head nurse had said, my name is Apple. I'm going to be taking care of Kristen today. And my mom goes, what? And she says, yes, my name is Apollonia, but my friends call me Apple. So huge sign. That's not a name that is very common, to be called Apple, especially to be my head nurse in that moment. So when I was in spirit, I was able to see my life review. And I've watched some NDEs as well. I knew something was going to happen. I didn't know what, but I knew something was going to happen. I always had the notion that I might die young, but I always put that in the back burner because it was something I feared. Um, and actually on October 30th, a friend of mine, I messaged her, and she reminded me when I got home and I was having a conversation with her. She goes, "Look at the message you sent me." And she sent a copy of it. And I told her on October 30th, I was visited in the morning by angels, one male and one female, and I could hear them like you were talking to me right in my ear. The male said a whole paragraph, and I don't remember a thing he said. The female only said a couple of lines. And the last part I remember is, "It's happening, it's time. It's happening, it's time." And I'm like, something's going to happen. I don't know what, but something's going to happen, is what I kept telling my friend. And on November 3rd is when it all happened. So when I had the life review, it was all around me. It was like a 360 view of my life, of every part of it, every age. But the difference is that you can feel the other people. I could remember at the same time my emotion and how I was, but it was mainly about, it was about them. And I didn't see, and that does not reflect that I am perfect by any means. It is the way that I learn is by how other people feel. It was all the joy, all the happy moments, the laughter, the love. So I could feel the love of my mom, feel the love of my daughter, of my husband, of everybody in all of these different scenes. And I'm grateful to remember that because it reminds me the impact we have on other people when we say something by our actions, how it affects others. And the way that I felt was just so much love and joy that that's all I want to do. And if I do something the opposite of that, then I'm going to take ownership of it and make it right. At that point, I remember going to another area, or like a greeting area, and everyone was there. There was just a sea of beings. So many that they were all in the background. I knew that my ancestors were there. I could see pops and faces of family that have passed. All the animals I've had. Everyone that I've ever channeled. This is how interconnected we are. Because everyone that I've ever channeled, animals, people, they were all there. And what was so amazing to me is a friend of mine, I would always bring forward her son, who had passed while he was very young, teenager in high school. And I saw him front and center. And it was like, oh my goodness, I could see his face. He had this smirk, one side higher than the other. And we embraced. Remember that part because it gets so amazing. But everyone was there, guides. And it was a conversation of, you can stay. God had told me, which this memory came back. I was told more memories will come back, a spontaneous awareness and knowing and picture memory in my mind. But God said I came to do what I was meant to do. I actually slipped in. I was not going to be here in this human realm. I chose at the last moment that the best way for me to do my work was to be here instead of being a guide for someone. But at 44 years old, I guess what strikes me is that I was told that I lived my purpose. And I thought, but in my human mind, in Kristen's mind right now, I think, how can that be possible? I didn't change the world. I didn't do all of these things. But when I was with God, I did. You learned, you grew, you welcomed the change, you welcomed the emotions, and then you made yourself vulnerable so other people could see and other people can heal because of your words. And then you started activating people and giving healings and all these different things. You lived your purpose. So you have a choice. Do you want to stay home or do you want to go back? And I remember bringing my awareness to myself, my human self, and thinking, I love her. Her story's not done yet. And as soon as I said that I was going to go back, there's this, I call it the Great Hall. Others might call it the Akashic Records, the Hall of Learning. I keep saying I need to paint it, and I do. It is these clean white walls, and the ceiling goes as high as you can see. And there were these huge windows, and I could see the panes, they were black panes that were on the windows. And I could see out and I could see what would be, it has rings, but I'm told it was Uranus that I saw. This big ring around Uranus. And I could just see things out the window. And I was at this huge table, and there were two guides in front of me. I can see their light, but I can't tell who they were. I know that my higher self was with me. And I was looking at, the only way I can describe it is a moving map. If those who like Harry Potter, like I do, the Marauders map moves and you can see everyone that's on there. Well, this was a moving map and a moving timeline. I could move it. Let's fast forward 10 years. Let's fast forward another 30 years. Let's focus on when Kristen wakes up. And I was able to move things around. We're not going to do this. We're going to do this. We're not going to do this. We're going to do this. And I was able to choose. I was doing it. It wasn't guides. It wasn't someone else. This was all chosen by myself. So after that, and I can't remember the full sequence of everything, but when I agreed to come back several years ago, I am attuned to Kundalini Reiki. I then was attuned to Rahani celestial healing in my human body. And in that time period, a couple-ish years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, I was attuned to something else that I didn't know. I'm like, I feel like I was attuned to something. What was that? What's going on? And the guides are like, you'll understand more as time goes on. We need you to be patient and we need you to just trust and keep moving forward like you're doing. Okay. So I would get glimpses of things and I would turn on this energy, not knowing the name or anything. And I could feel it. There's no question when you're using your healing abilities that you know it's happening. So I would use it every once in a while, but I didn't quite know how to use it or who was coming forward with it or anything like that. But when I was in spirit, God said, it's time to infuse you with rainbow light cord healing. So I needed to be infused with this energy while I was out of body. So I had to be in spirit to do that. So they worked on my human body as well as my spirit body and infused me. And it looked like this double helix of, the double helix was, it's how the seraphim look. The seraphim are these pearlescent dragons with 4 sets of wings. But this was a double helix and it was pearlescent, but I could see all of the colors. And God had said, this rainbow light cord healing is from myself and the seraphim. So that's when I came back into my body. Talking about the eyes, like I had mentioned before, my daughter, she just celebrated her birthday yesterday. She's now 22, 21 at the time that this occurred. She's would always take pictures of eyes because it's not, your eyes aren't just brown or black or green. they're the nebulas. There's just a depth, and the colors really, truly the window to the soul. So I apparently opened my eyes, and my daughter got all excited. And one of the nurses had said, she's not back. It's just the body's reacting in certain ways, because they would say, Kristen, can you blink your eyes? Can you move your fingers? Can you wiggle your toes? And I wasn't responding at all. So when I opened my eyes, my daughter said, there was nothing there. It was flat. The color was flat. There was nothing there. They weren't your eyes. So understand that before something happens to loved ones, to animals, people, God takes you out. We are mind, body, spirit, and the spirit is out. So it's the body that is feeling the pain, but your spirit can't feel it. So the shell of you feels the pain, and you're not there to witness it. So it was, and my daughter would say things like, it's amazing how heavy a hand is. Because, when I'm sitting and I'm holding their hand, I'm rubbing my thumb, or you're squishing your hand and it's light. She goes, there was nothing. But when I came back, I was back. Like, they had to sedate me more, because my husband says she keeps waking up, and I would panic because I couldn't talk and I couldn't move. They strap you down. I don't remember this. It's what I was told. And my husband was able to talk to me. When the nurse came in, he's like, she keeps waking up. She's like, let's put her back to sleep so she can rest, and then we can reevaluate and see if we can take everything off. But when I was back, man, I was back full force. So much so that the next morning, early morning, when my parents came, it's funny because I always leave conditioner in my hair. I shampoo first, then I put the conditioner in, and I leave the conditioner in. Then I start washing my face, and I say prayers when I face the shower. And that's when I came out of body. So I saw a conditioner in my hair. So I turned my head to see my parents come in, and I went, hi. And mom said I had this curly Q that was just sticking out the side of my head. And she said, just the look on your face. She said, it looked like when you were a child. She said, it was just that true happiness, true joy, no weight of the world, like when you are older. That's the other thing too, in spirit, the lightness, not talking about, okay, I don't have a body, the lightness because of the emotions that we carry. And that was the feeling that I had in that moment, because I was just in pure joy, pure content. And I was just so happy to see my parents. And I really had no clue what was going on, because I kept forgetting every 30 seconds. Really, every 30 seconds. They call it 51st dates effect. And then it would go to 2 minutes. So I don't remember the first 4 days in the hospital. A little bit of the last 2 days. That's when I had gotten my defibrillator in the second hospital. But my mom said it was just the pure joy that was on my face. And honestly, when I was in the hospital, as traumatic as everything was, I was just so happy. I was happy to be back. I was happy to remember. Best friends of ours, John and Suzanne, when they walked in the room on Saturday, and, they have to ask, the nurses ask questions. So my husband, Ray, and my daughter, Emily, would ask me questions. What's your name? When's your date of birth? Do you know what year it is? Do you know who I am? Like all these random questions to make sure. And my friend Suzanne said, Kristen, she goes, you could see your eyes would go up, and you were searching for answers. You had to think about everything. And then John said, Kristen, what did you see? Did you see anything on the other side? And Suzanne goes, Kristen, the way that you looked at us, and she goes, there was no searching. I was with God, and whatever else I said at that time. She said, Kristen, there was like, they were dumbfounded by it. Knowing there's truth, because I've done readings for her before and that kind of stuff. but she said it was amazing just because of the state that you were in. So after I was home, I was told, message your friend, the one that I saw the sun in spirit. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to message her. And I know she wouldn't mind. She's a medium as well. She's very talented and gifted and psychic and intuitive. And, but I'm like, no, no. And the guides actually said to me in the sweetest way possible, get over yourself. You have to message her. This is important. Message her. So I messaged her and I'm like, okay, I saw your son. He had this smirk. One side was higher than the other. And we embraced. And she goes, Kristen, she goes, first of all, that's his smile. He would always smirk like that. It was like his signature smile. And she said, he came to me when I was in the healing circle for you and said, I was there and I saw Kristen and we embraced. And that's exactly what I told her. I said, we hugged. I hugged your son. And she goes, Kristen, that's exactly what. And I've got chills all over. So chills are validating your energy, especially those that are empaths, are clairsentients, are feelers. I get these massive chills saying yes, yes, yes. And then the ray of light that kept coming on me. Another friend of mine, she had when I hadn't said anything. I was absorbing what was happening to me, and trying to make, I guess, sense of everything and sitting with my thoughts and everything that had occurred. And my friend had said, Kristen, I saw you and you looked like the sun. You had these rays of light all over you like the sun. So I was able to validate that. One of my mentors, she was the first one I spoke to outside of the family about everything. And she goes, I saw you dancing. And I said, yes, because when I went with God, I was swirling around. I just remember that was the moment where it was, I'm so light. I forgot what this felt like. No shame, no anger, no fear or anxiety. I was just free. It was just all about love and joy. There was no shame. There wasn't, oh, God's going to see what I did. No, no. It wasn't about that at all. It's something that I hope I always cry with because it was so profound. The other thing too is I have several other guides, galactics, that come forward, many others. And I remember thinking, why didn't I see you when I was in a meditation? Why didn't I see you in spirit? And what blew my mind was when they said, because we're alive. We're alive in an alternate dimension. When you see UFOs and movement and that kind of stuff up there, because that's something that occurred to me as I saw a lot of movement in the night sky a couple of weeks after I came back. And that was my conversation with them. And they said, because we're alive and we communicate with you physically as well. You see us. So I was blown away by that. I needed to sit and wrap my brain around a lot of it. You know, in this spiritual community, when I first started out, there's a higher self. So I had to sit with that and absorb it because I'm like, I was mind blown about the higher self. Well, then who is my higher self? And then it wasn't until a few years ago that I realized who my higher self was and had all of these experiences. But this was one of those where, oh my gosh, you're alive. So being able to see all of these beings and be able to do this work, everything is just more heightened because I trust myself, because I know I have my ego back. So Kristen will still doubt herself, but I'm tired. Like I can feel my ego has integrated more to the higher vibrational frequency because it's like I'm just tired of being so hard on myself. I'm tired of doubting myself. No, I'm doing this. This is happening. There's no explanation for the things that are happening. There's no way for things that I know to come up. And I trust myself more. And that's what it's about. The more you trust yourself, you're trusting the divine because we're all one. We're all interconnected. We're just fragmented. And when you go back to spirit, all that awareness, everyone's there. People that weren't even my blood relative family were there, which was just amazing. And it was a beautiful experience. And I'm really blessed that it happened, as scary as it was. I had to learn to heal from the defibrillator surgery and all these different things that would come up from that. But it was an amazing experience. And I'm blessed to be able to remember it, and blessed that I bring that back to me every day. I kind of have no choice. It was in my shower. So every day I go in the shower and I just put my hand on the wall to remember and give gratitude to the memory of it, so I can help transform myself for the better, to be able to better help others as well on their journey to heal, whatever it may be. But that's my story.
It's quite a story, Kristen. It's so beautiful. I do have a couple of questions, but I want to say, as I'm listening to you, and now I'm going to start weeping. It's very hard when you have an experience, especially living in this world so filled with judgment, and we're so well trained to be so hard on ourselves and not see our own beauty, that when you have a, say, otherworldly experience, for want of a better description, and experience this incredible love, it's astounding how off track we have gotten as far as what our beliefs regarding religion and God and who we are and what our place is and all that. And I always say, I wish everyone in the world could experience for 1 minute, even just 1 minute, of that indescribable love and acceptance that is really the truth, the purest truth. The world would transform in a heartbeat. It would change like that. We would not be able to hate and judge and divide the way that we do after experiencing that. And I had an experience, as I said, mine was not near death. It was through a different, very surprising but welcome Kundalini awakening. But anyway, I don't know where I was going with that, but here's the thing that I did want to say: if people could just experience this for 1 minute, how it would transform the world. There's a couple of things I want to kind of, maybe if you can talk a little bit more about, because I come from a very religious Catholic background. Up until my mid-30s, I was very traditionally religious and very, very, I mean, mass every day, confession every week. I was very, very enmeshed in my religion. And while there was some talk of joy or whatever, and God loves you, it was more somber, more heavy, more penance, more purgatory, more atonement. And I experienced none of that. As I've said before on the show, my experience was all feminine, divine feminine, and very much, it was like she was saying, oh, stop doing this to yourselves. Stop doing this to yourselves. None of this is true. None of this matters. Like, you're so beautiful. You're so loved. She wanted us to awaken to that. And you spoke of the circle of children. Is that what it was called?
The circle children, yes.
Yes, that are more aligned with what we call God actually is. Sometimes I shy away from the word God because it has so much baggage with it. I call it divine, spirituality, whatever it is. But let's say God for convenience sake. Can you expand a little bit more on that circle of children and how that was really the true essence of God?
Yes. So God, source, the divine, is masculine and feminine, and is childlike in a way that is just this innocence, this pureness, this love. There's no love with baggage with it. I'll love you if, or anything like that. It was just, I love you. I love you for all you are. There's no shame in, oh, God can see what I did, or, like all this. The whimsy, the magic, the joy. I mean, for Source to be source, the creator, and find such magic in the butterfly that just flew by my window or something. It's just pureness. You know, they always talk about Mother Mary and how she heals the wounded child. And the circle children is the joyous child. It's the total opposite. It's the joyous child. And it is because God said, use the circle children to be the child that you didn't get to be, or to bring that child back. Because I had a beautiful childhood. And I've always been childlike and silly and goofy. And I thought being an adult meant being stuffy. And I was a banker for 15 years. So I tried being an adult and it just didn't suit me because I was just too weird and goofy. And when I always thought that that was a characteristic I didn't like about myself, God said, that's me. Just like, you know, we take on characteristics of our parents sometimes and just different quirks and all of that. God says, and that's me in you, because we're all connected. We're all part of one another. And I did see, it reminded me when you were talking about, because I was raised Catholic. We weren't, you know, strict in it, but I did, you know, have, I had to have my confirmation and my communion and all that kind of stuff. So I had to study, and I never understood. I always thought something was wrong with me, that I couldn't retain the information because it didn't feel right. But I was young. This is what I'm told, all of that. So when I first perceived Jesus, when I was doing a session for a friend of mine, um, this feels important to say, but I remember saying I would love to see Jesus, and I hadn't for maybe almost a year or so. And then when I was doing a session for someone, I saw Jesus in my mind's eye, and I said, give me a moment. And I just lost it and started bawling. And Jesus says, I've always been with you. Our vibrations weren't a match yet. And you raised your vibration, and now meeting, because everyone is a key, whether they're what we say good or bad, you know, because everyone is a teacher in their own right. And my friend, her vibration helped link me and unlock and open for me to perceive Jesus. I did see Jesus on the other side. And I remember him putting his hand over my heart and just said, I am, you are, we are, everyone being connected. But going back to the circle children, when I find myself now in moments of frustration or all those wonderful, lovely human feelings that we get that are lower in vibration, I ask the circle children to I expand my heart and I bring them in. How do I find the joy in the situation? How do I find the whimsy? And then something will typically happen. My dog will do something ultimately goofy that just makes me bust out laughing. And they're like, that's how you do it. You see the silly things. Because you know, when you're in a mood and have a tude and you trip over something or you drop something 50 times and you get even more annoyed. Now I just laugh at it because it's spirit trying to say, lighten up. And that's how I bring that moment back. But everyone can call in the circle children to help you, whether you had a traumatic childhood, a beautiful childhood, be the child now that you didn't get to be. Just because we're a certain age, that doesn't mean anything. We can be and embody the circle children to have that joy, that fun, that whimsy. There's nothing that states that we can't. And that just brings more of this contentedness into my life to be able to play badminton and just do all these different things, and just be silly and have fun and dance like nobody's watching type of thing. So I go in the store at the grocery store and they're playing Backstreet Boys or something, and you bet I'm going to be walking down the aisle singing the song, and other people are like, yeah, like we'll look at one another and just kind of point like, yeah, and it just brings the interconnectedness and the joy. And that's the circle children, bringing that connectedness. Because you know, when you're a kid, you are friends with everyone. You can go to a park and just not know anyone. I remember my daughter doing that. And by the end of the time at the park, everyone was, bye, Emily, bye, Emily. You know, so it's just that pure joy, pure love, pure magic. And that's, God gives us so many gifts, but that's one of the biggest gifts is the circle children really wanting to help us bring more lightness to the density here on the earthly plane and bringing in the divine feminine as well. There's so much, and this has come up too. There's so much that I've realized that we were told certain things, and women hold such a divine power in this world, and it's about bringing it forward. It's about men owning and loving their own divine feminine within them as well. And I do see the shifts. I do see the ripple, and I am seeing it in a lot of people. And it's beautiful to see that and to know that it's going to grow.
Very well put. When you were talking, it reminded me of, those of us who were raised with Christian religion, everything that we're discussing actually is right in line with what Jesus taught, which is be as little children, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's exactly what you were saying. And did I not say ye are gods? Some people call that heresy or blasphemy, but Jesus said we are gods. He said, greater things than I have done will you do. And we just kind of skip over that. I don't see anyone raising people from the dead or healing sickness, so I think maybe it's time we started examining that, because I don't think this, and I know there's many other religions that have enlightened masters that they believe in, and there's 8 billion of us. There's no way we're all going to believe the same thing. And I think that's where we always trip up. I was having a discussion with someone who is very traditionally religious before you and I started speaking. And this is how it is. There is God the Father, there's God the Son, and there's Jesus. And that's just it. That is her belief system. I respect that. But what I have issue with is when you say, this is what I believe, so this is the only truth, and I need everyone to believe this.
Right.
If you have found a belief system that works for you and brings you peace in this world that is very chaotic and difficult right now, thank God for that. Thank God for that. But if your religion pits you against other people, if the path you're following divides and hates and says those people are bad, we are the good ones, we must destroy them, that's somebody's personal agenda you're following. That is not the divine that I have experienced, that anyone who's had near-death experiences has experienced. Right. And I will die on that hill. If the God you believe in wants retribution and revenge and to see other people suffer, right. I don't know that God. Have no, well, that's not true. I did experience that God when I was practicing a different kind of religion, but that's another story. But anyway, so thank you so much. But before we close, I would like to get, and this is just your views. Obviously, there's no right or wrong. We'll know that when we cross the veil for good. But I always find this very intriguing, because even in spiritual circles, New Age or whatever you want to call it, there's people who say, this is your destiny. Sit back, enjoy the ride. Just follow along. And then there's other people that say you wake up every day, you envision what you want, you bring that into manifestation, you focus on it. And I find that there's merit in both. I find them interesting. And I really do believe we should be inspiring each other, not instructing each other. So, Kristen, and I found it interesting that you were told, because a lot of people who have near-death experience are told, this is as far as you go. You're not done yet. You have to go back. And a lot of people fight to stay because it's so beautiful there. They're like, I don't want to go back. They're like, you're not done. So that makes me believe more in a destiny where you're not in control. But then there's others like you were told, hey, you did a great job. Do you want to go back, or do you want to continue on this plane? And you got the choice. So to inspire, not instruct, what is Kristen's opinion of destiny versus choice?
So in my opinion, when we are asleep, so to speak, we're not spiritually awakened. We don't have that aha light bulb moment that there's something more. We can go on this path, and there are things that, okay, I'm going to experience this, things that we chose prior to coming here. So that's when we're on that train. and we're having these experiences. Okay, and how are we interacting with these experiences? That to me is more of like a, this is fated, this is the destined things, because you're not awakened, so you're following along that path. I hope that makes sense. But when you awaken or you come to the realization, because I said when I woke up, and I will never forget my own words, there's got to be something to this life more than someone else pulling the strings. That's when it happened. That's when I awakened. That's when I started to see the 111, 11, 11, the angel numbers. Then I started to hear, see, feel, and know, and all these different things. That's when it changes, where you realize we are God. We are creator. God gave birth to all of us, and we are fragments of source, and we get to choose. So yes, when I was in spirit, I said, these are the things I want to experience, and it will come into my experience. But I can also say, we're not doing this, because I can state it. I can have that in my will. And if I am at the frequency match of the higher vibration, then that's what I'm going to experience. Should I lower my vibration and I'm in a rut, remember, there's no good or bad. It's just how you're vibrating. You have a choice. So there's certain things that we do place into our lives that we wish to experience. So I remember placing that into Kristen's life on the timeline. But how I choose to interact with it, with my vibration, is the outcome. It all depends. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
But we do have a chance to change it. By our vibration, by our words, we cast spells all the time. By our words, by what we think. So working on the self, the shadow aspect, a lot of people call it as well. There's so many things that we work on. And that was actually something that happened to me. We got a puppy a couple of months ago. So now I have 3 dogs and 2 cats. So it was a whole thing with spirit, with getting the puppy. That was all a divine thing. I saw the puppy in my mind's eye, and it was like a whole thing. But what I realized was I was getting very frustrated. I would get angry. I would get impatient because I'm still very sick. I have my heart issues. I get very sick, and now we have a puppy at home. My husband happened to be working a lot more, and I was going out of my mind pretty much. And you can get, just like you can get depression when you have a child, you can get the puppy blues. So I was talking to my guides, and I'm like, why is this happening? And they said, you wanted to work on patience, anger, frustration. What a beautiful way for you to bring in those lessons than with a puppy. And I went, oh my gosh. So I remember saying on the other side, this is going to be good. Let's make it really good for Kristen. I remember saying something like that, but I'm like, well, what is it? And then lately I've just felt so frustrated and all that kind of stuff. But it was the lessons that I chose to learn in the sweetest way possible. So I've learned to relax more. I've learned to let it go. There'll be accidents, you clean it up, that kind of thing. So I was able to pull myself out of the lower vibration, to bring it up higher, and to rise above the situation. And now things are really, I just see a shift in Olive. I see a shift in the puppy. I see a shift I can feel in the house. So I hope that makes sense with how all of that works, how I've experienced it, and what I've been told by my guides, how that actually works. And we're all, remember, we're here to experience individuality. We're here to think, okay, we're just this one person, realizing we're all God and we're all creators that are all interconnected, but we all have our own purpose and reason for being here. So my experience is different from yours, is different from the next person. But how we communicate, I will always say, work on your vibration, because that will do wonders for someone's life and how you interact with, because things don't happen to you, they happen for you.
Thank you for sharing that. That is definitely something that I understood very clearly when I had my experience. The one thing, we're ready to end here, but I do want to say also you said something really important, and this is something that I've started adding is, please let this happen in as easy and gentle a way as possible. Because what I'm learning over and over, what I keep hearing is there is no value in suffering for suffering's sake, which was very much drilled into in my religion, that, you know, penance, suffering, sacrifice, all that. And, you know, if there were two roads in front of me in my life, and this one was full of rainbows and butterflies, and this one had ground glass and spontaneous fires, I would go, oh, I think that's the one I'm supposed to take. Always, always the hardest road. And so now I say, okay, whatever lessons that I signed up for to learn, I'm more than ready, but with the caveat, gentle and easy now, because I do believe that is Divine Mother's way, that we're learning is a more gentle, easy way to exist, especially in our spiritual lives. So thank you so much, Kristen. This was, what a beautiful soul you are. So grateful that you did this. Can you please tell listeners where they can find out more about you?
Yes, you can find me at www.infiniteheartandsoul.com. You can email me from there as well. I am on social media too. I'm trying to put out more content, because that was one thing, was Spirit wants me to be more out there. And because of the NDE experience, it really shoved me out there a lot more. So it's amazing, because people had channeled messages for me, and something that I was told. So trust your own intuition as well. Trust your gut, trust your intuition, what you're told, and go with that and flow with that. But yes, you can find me at Infinite Heart and Soul on Facebook, and on Instagram and TikTok as well.
Okay, thank you so much, Kristen Numen.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.